We've all encountered the following scenario. It's Friday afternoon and you've promised the vehicle to its customer. Up until this point, everything has gone perfect, and then it happens. Your technician tells you he needs a part, and now you can't finish the job. Hello, my name is Danny Penduro, second generation owner of J&L Body and Paint Shop. I'd like to take a moment today to go ahead and talk to you about the parts procurement process that we've implemented in our repair facility. We'll touch on three key components to the system. The first being the teardown and blueprinting stage, the second being the parts storage and the use of parts racks, and lastly we'll touch on parts receiving and parts mirroring. So let's take a look at the teardown blueprinting stage and touch on a few key ideas that make that part of the process successful. The teardown phase. You've often heard this referred to as something like the blueprinting process or 100% teardown. The key concept here is that we're trying to identify every single part, including nuts and bolts and clips, that will be needed to actually execute the repair from start to finish and avoid any delays at the tailor end. So let's look at this Mustang here that we're doing and see if we can tie some of that in. We've identified that we're repairing the bumper. As you can see, it's been removed, and we're replacing the fender. That is on our estimate. We're blending out the hood, and as you can see, the hood nozzles have been removed. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. It's not removed during the teardown. It gets removed by the paint shop, and either they lose it or they break it, and next thing you know, you're running to your dealership to try and find a nozzle. Let's get the nozzles removed during the repair process, during the teardown phase. So when we move back to the door, we can see here we've obviously marked out that we're going to be blending it. But the key here is to identify that we've removed the mirror, we've removed the belt molding and the handle. Belt moldings will break, it happens, and it's fine, but let's identify that during our teardown phase. So we're not ordering that clip, we're looking to try and get that clip on that Friday afternoon. The rocker molding, it's been removed. Rocker molding clips are probably one of the more common things that break, so let's address that now during our estimating phase and avoid any delays downstream. The wheel has been reconned, it's been sent out, you can see, so we have the spare on there. We move up here to the apron. Again, this apron damage would not have been identified if we hadn't removed the fender. So it's important to not only recognize that we're replacing the fender, remove it from the car, but it actually allowed us to see that we have some apron damage. All the wiring that would get in the way of the paint shop being able to spray the apron and spot it in, that's been set back. Again, at this point, we feel very confident that anything we're going to need to put this car back together after the repairs have been done have now been addressed on our original estimate and not any supplements downstream. So let's talk, I'll show you now a car that maybe hasn't been properly torn down and talk about some of the hurdles we could face as we move further into the repair. So we'll now take a look at a vehicle that has not been properly torn down and talk about some of the hurdles we could face moving downstream. In our estimate, we've identified the need to repair the bumper, repair the fender, and blend the hood. The problem here with this example is that starting with the headlight has not been removed. It's often you have a headlight grommet that tucks into the fender. We need to know if that fender grommet is going to be replaced or if it's going to be usable or not. The issue is not whether or not it will break, but the issue being that we need to identify that now in our initial estimate, not downstream when we're trying to put the car together. The hood blend, again, the nozzles are still on there. We talked about the potential hazard there. Moving down underneath the fender, we can see that the fender liner is still in the car. I can actually physically see now some fasteners that are hanging loose there, so I can guarantee you that those fasteners are not on an estimate. Again, the problem here is that as we move downstream in the repair, we know those fender liner clips are going to become of need. We now need to create a supplement for them, or even more importantly, we need to now make sure we get those in and avoid any delays delivering the vehicle. Underneath the fender, I can actually feel that the fender brace is bent. Without removing the fender, or at least removing the headlight, these are things we can't see. Again, the most important part about the teardown is to make sure that any item that we think is going to have some damage is made accessible. We need to remove any of the doubt or the unknown. In our suspension, as you can see here, we do have some severe suspension damage. What have we done here to make sure that we have identified all the suspension damage that the car has? And more importantly, have we removed those suspension parts to make sure that we can mirror match them, which we'll talk about later on down the road. In this case, we have not. So we have some hazards here that are going to inevitably create some delays for us if we don't address these during our teardown or blueprinting phase. We'll now talk about the parts carts and the importance of having them, and more importantly, storing the parts properly. Let's take a look. So to this point, we've now torn the vehicle down properly. We've identified all the parts that we're going to need to replace and all the items we're going to need to repair. So we're good there. The next stage of our repair process is how we actually rack our broken parts and store our parts. It's a simple process, as you can see, a simple four rack system. The 2 shelves we use for all the items that are going to be replaced. So here you have the fender. We actually have a little clip jar where we identify the clips we're going to be needing. Here we have a fender liner and we have a fender brace. The important thing is not necessarily the parts that are on here, but how they're structured. In our system, all of our guys in our shop understand that the broken parts go in the 2 middle shelves, so there's never any question whether this is going to be repaired or replaced. The top shelf is used for bumper covers. Whether we're repairing or replacing, bumper covers go on the top rack. Again, it's a simple process, it's effective, and more importantly, it's uniform all the way across the board. Every single guy in our shop knows this is how we build our carts, so there's never any confusion. We have a simple little name card here, so in case we have an adjuster show up and our parts manager isn't available, adjusters know that we have a specific area in our shop to go ahead and store these parts, so they know they can come here to our parts area and identify the car they're looking for based on the name tag. Very simple but effective process. We'll now talk about our parts mirroring and parts receiving, which is the final stage of our repair process, of our parts process. The final phase of our parts process is the parts receiving and parts mirroring process. It's our safety net. For you sports fans out there, this is our goalie. The first thing I'd like to mention is that we actually have a parts table that's nice and high up off the ground. It allows our parts manager to go ahead and do his thing in a comfortable manner so he's not on the floor scrounging around and making a mess. The example we'll point out today is this window regulator. We identified the need for a window regulator on our estimate during our teardown phase, and we received by our vendor a window regulator itself. As you sit them next to each other and mirror match them, you can see you have a right side, you have a left side, so we've received the incorrect one. We can now, though, contact our vendor and with time get the correct part in. That is the purpose of the parts mirroring process. Over to the right, you can actually see that we've rebuilt our parts cart with all the correct parts on it that have already been mirror matched. The hood latch, the old and the new, the horn, old and new, hood hinges, old and new, bumper brackets, old and new. Even down to our clip jar, you can see as you open it up, this was built during our teardown process. We actually have the old and the new clip in there, so we can make sure that we get the correct clip in as well. Nuts, bolts, and clip are just as important as a major headlight or a major fender. Either one of them can create delays in you trying to get the car out the door. The visual indicator, which is important as well, is up on the top. Our parts manager has actually gone through it. He's identified and made sure that every part that we build for was received and mirror matched. You can tell by his highlighted marks on the page here. Our technicians now know that when they see that everything's highlighted and it's sitting up on the parts cart, that they can actually get the parts cart into the repair process and not anticipate having any delays or having any wrong parts. Therefore, the repair process should go very smoothly. This is our parts mirroring process. I believe it is the most effective and efficient part of the entire process, and we spent a lot of time developing it, but are very happy with it. In our industry, parts continues to be the #1 reason why a car does not leave on time. But as we have demonstrated, a proper system of checks and balances can help to control those headaches. We've built our system from using the input from our staff and our technicians and believe you can do the same thing. Again, our customer is what matters most. So a system of parts can help touch time go up, cycle time go down, and in the end, a happy customer is the most important thing. This is Danny Pandero, second generation owner of J&L Body Shop. Thank you for watching.